There is a place called home. Warmth and shelter when the wind outside blows cold and bitter. Food for the body and the soul. Space when I need to shut the door for a while, to lick my wounds, to tend my spirit and come back to myself. Attention, recognition to my needs, of my achievements. Things solid or beautiful or just treasured. Holding memories like fragrant cups, grounding me firmly in the reassurance of ordinariness. Here are some of my treasured things. This is a lock of my daughter's baby hair. It's soft and downy and much fairer than her hair is now, 40 years on, and when she is a mother herself. I hold its softness in my hand, and at once I feel soft baby skin, damp and sweet and smelling of Johnson's, pressed to my cheek. Small arms cling around my neck like ivy to a post. A small weight asleep on my chest in the night. I see the room with its bright yellow walls and paper mobiles of clowns, and the view from the window over fields and houses to the sea. I see the woman I was then, with less lines, no white hairs, and I remember how she was always tired, with 3 children under 5 and a job, but that she didn't mind being tired. I remember that she sat that way at night with her daughter, singing and rocking her to sleep, and thought that no feeling would ever be deeper or more satisfying. This oyster shell was retrieved from a particularly good and somewhat alcoholic lunch at the Lochfine Oyster Bar many years ago. I hold it, I can feel its jagged edges and its smooth pink interior, and I can taste the viscous saltiness of the oysters, feel them sliding down my throat, followed quickly by a very dry, slightly sparkling white wine. I remember that it was the first time I had oysters, and it made me feel a little daring, a little decadent, especially because someone else was paying, and because it was a Sunday, and I am a Presbyterian. I remember the 3 people I was with, and our mood of relaxed tiredness, because we had just finished doing some work together, and the mellow conversation of our friendship. I remember that it was very cold outside, and there was snow on the ground, and the sun shining on the loch. I remember that I was very happy. This stone is a piece of red granite from the Ross of Mull in the Western Isles. I picked it up less than 2 weeks ago from a circle of stones on the ground. There was a stone for each of the group of people who spent a week together at the Iona Community's small and very remote outdoor centre, 2 miles over a moorland track and down to the sea. The circles symbolised the community that had formed among us as the week went by. The taking away of the stones by each of us symbolised our community breaking to go back to our widely scattered homes, and yet carrying it into other, wider circles of community. A circle broken to be shared. I hold the stone, feel its hardness, see the mica glittering, its dark underside, where it was embedded in damp sand, and I remember the crackle and spark and scent of the wood fire by which we were sitting, the whitewashed walls, the faces of the people in the candlelight. I remember the vulnerability of this one, the joyful enthusiasm of another, the profound respect for one another, and yet the sheer hilarity of cleaning the toilets together. I remember that I was moved to tears by the beauty of the people and the place. The word memento derives from the Latin memor, mindful, whose stem is the word mens, mind. It's also, of course, the root of the word memory and of remembering. A memento is an object that serves as a reminder that reawakens in us the power of remembering, of calling to mind. It may not be an object. Memory is triggered by many things. I cannot smell sawdust without remembering that when I was very small, each year men would come and build a platform in the garden of my house for the church summer fair. I smell sawdust and immediately I'm a 4-year-old again. In a shop in Geneva, that home of clocks, I heard a musical box play a tune I had not heard for nearly 60 years, but I remembered it. Our sense memories are extremely powerful. Smell, taste, touch, sight, hearing. The smallest cell remembers a sound. Words collect emotional and physical responses, hold them in the body. It is the body which remembers first. Memory is what brings to mind what's already in the body. Sometimes this is confusing. We have the sense memory, but we cannot recall what it is attached to. We cannot call it to mind. The smell of frying onions, the sound of a particular song, the taste of something sweet on our tongue, the view of a particular street corner. We know it has significance, but what? Have we been here before? When we do remember, when we can call to mind, our memories recreate for us not just the onions or the song or the fruit or the street, but a whole world. We feel the sense memory in the body, and then we feel the emotional response that collected it in the first place. The curiosity, the delight, the wonder, or the fear, the sorrow, the anger. Human memory may be either immediate, short-term, or long-term. And what we choose to store in our long-term memories is closely linked to our emotions. And we recreate in memory the context for the feeling, its environment, its circumstances, its dramatis personae. That context is always a world with its own internal logic, its meaning, its community. I smell the sawdust, hear the tune on the musical box, and I revisit the world of early childhood. I take a look round with the eyes of a different world, the world of adulthood. I recollect before returning to my present world. But my visit has changed my present world, be it ever so slightly. I return warmed or chilled. I return inspired or despondent. Ever so slightly, my past reshapes my present. In my present, I have things to do, tasks that weave the pattern of my days. But in these too, memory plays its part. I have a morning routine. It may not differ that much from yours. Every morning, I get out of bed, open the curtains, and then I go and put the kettle on. I can tell you that it's a routine, not because a researcher has come and observed me doing it, but because I remember that that is what I invariably do, and how to do it. I have done it so many times that I do it completely without thought and 3/4 asleep. I remember how to brush my teeth, how to put my clothes on, and by the time I am ready to commence my day, I have remembered 100 things without even thinking about them in my first waking hour. Some of them I've been doing for almost my whole life. Others are pieces of learning remembered that were accumulated more recently, although not that recently actually. When I sit down at my laptop and switch on, I go into a remembering process that has become second nature. Click on Word, click on File, click on Open. Each day of my life is a recollection, a gathering together of who I am and what I need to call to mind in order to function and live well. I collect up the many worlds, the disparate experiences, the scattered members of myself, and I endeavour to bring them into a unity in order that they will serve my present. I enter the house of myself, and I know where I am. Here, my identity is clear, a message written out in tables, pictures, washing on a line, scattered papers, and the smell of coffee. I am contained, held in safety, sanctuary. Here I am, centred. The remembering of the body personal is not different in essence from the remembering of the body politic. Each community also has its mementos, which serve as reminders, which call to mind significant and formative events in its life, its sense memories of collective experience, its rehearsed routines and rituals. The family has its photographs, its favourite meals, its role-playing. The regiment has its flags, its battle memories, its ranks and parades. The tartan army has its kilts, its jimmy-wigs, its chants and waves. By these they are constituted. They know themselves and are known by others. It's a recollection, a gathering together of all the members in order to be what they desire to be. The Good Family Robinson, the toughest regiment in the British Army, the best fans in the Euros. The remembering of the body, whether it is the body personal or the body politic, is to have a story, a history, and therefore it really is to have a self. Rowan Williams writes, memory is the self because it is my presence to myself, the way in which I constitute myself and understand myself as a subject with a continuous history of experience. The freer and fuller our ability to remember, the freer and fuller ourselves are able to be. This, of course, is one of the foundation stones of therapeutic processes such as counselling. But it's not just in therapy that this is true. It's recognised, for example, that the structured sharing of memories of elderly people is beneficial not just for its social opportunities, but for its effects on physical and mental health. In a community centre to which I used to be attached, the single most popular event were reminiscence days for older people who were eager to share their memories of a childhood world that no longer existed, and especially of their immediate post-war youths of rationing and national service. It's not enough just to have the memories, it's also important to share them, to tell one's story, to people one's remembered world with others who also belonged there, and so to recreate one's present identity in a community of meaning. Telling our stories in the context of a shared understanding of their meaning and significance validates and confirms us in our identity. It gives us access to a fuller and freer self. This too is a gathering together, a recollection of all the members in a unity of purpose. Church is also a reminiscence. It depends on our shared memory to make sense, to be meaningful. We come to share our stories. We come to break the bread. We come to know our rising from the dead. Christian faith is premised on memory, on the recalling to mind of what we already know in the body. The great drama of liturgy is, in a sense, a reminiscence. It has its mementos, its sense memories, its rituals and ceremonies, by which we remember ourselves as Christians. In worship, we become what the past is doing now. I've gone on at some length about the importance of memory, and in particular of sense memories, because they're evidence to me of the sheer insanity of the severance of word and flesh. What the Orcadian writer Edwin Muir, in his poem The Incarnate One, describes thus: how could our race betray the image and the incarnate one unmake, who chose this form and fashion for our sake? The Word made flesh, here is made word again, a word made word in flourish and arrogant crook. See there King Calvin with his iron pen, and God's 3 angry letters in a book. And there the logical hook on which the mystery is impaled and bent into an ideological argument. Muir was writing in mid-20th century Presbyterian Scotland. At that time, and even sometimes today, its rituals and ceremonies, its sensory austerity and bareness, its extreme concentration on words and abstract concepts seemed designed to remind people that the flesh was wicked, the body not to be trusted, and that everything sensory was damnable papist idolatry. This, I think, has done incalculable damage to generations, and in the end, incalculable damage to the church. Today, we know that trauma is held in the body, with consequences for both physical and mental health, often lifelong. Some of you may remember the scandal of Romanian orphanages towards the end of the Ceausescu regime and the end of communism. Hundreds of thousands of children were abandoned and kept in orphanages in the most appalling conditions, where they were subjected to institutionalized neglect, physical and sexual abuse, and drug use to control behavior. Do people remember that happening? Apart from all the other long-term effects of this dehumanizing treatment, one of the most important discoveries was how important basic human contact, simple holding and cuddling, was to the development, the mental and physical development of babies and small children. This sensory lack has a physical effect on the brain, and traumatized children can grow up to actually have smaller brains. Reading the literature on trauma, and especially trauma in children, is terrifying. All churches, all Christians, all people of goodwill, if they are to respond and act with care, pastoral sensitivity, hope-filled action, must reject any ideologies, theologies and practices which see the body in all its varieties as a problem to be solved, an inconvenience to be legislated away, a curse to be broken, a threat to be controlled. But it's not just for those who suffer trauma that our ownership of our embodiment is so crucial. Let me go back to the treasured things I shared with you at the beginning. All of them are precious to me in themselves, but also for what they help me to remember. It is in order that our capacity for love, joy, delight, beauty and courage may be enabled and enhanced. It is for the sake of justice, and that we may live fully alive, that we need to recognize the gift of our bodies, that we need to come to our senses. No doubt all of you have many mementos and treasured things as well. So I've told you about mine. So I invite you to think a little about what a few of yours are, and then maybe talk to somebody sitting beside you about what they might be.